Hey guys, welcome back. Today it's about food photography. I've had a few people inquiring about, I'm just starting out in the food world. What is the best light modifier to get? What light modifiers are there? What do they do? What's the difference between them? So that's what we're going to look at. We're going to go from bare bulb to a great big Octobox and show you all the examples in between so you can see how it affects it. So let's get into it. Before I start with throwing out examples to you, we need to go over a few things. Now, the size of the light varies the hardness of the light. A small light is a hard light. A large light is a softer light. Also, some of the modifiers, if they have a silver lining, they create more of a specular, a harder light than if you have a white lining. Those have a variability to it. Now, in order to try and set this as a test as accurate as I can get it, I'm going to have my camera set on a tripod shooting a subject of food. I'm not going to move it. I'm just simply going to change the modifier and take the photo so we can compare. Now, unfortunately, when you use a light modifier, some block light. In fact, most do. So I'm going to have to compensate the exposure. So these exposures might not be perfect on each one. I'll try and get it as close as I possibly can. There is quite a bit of variable to it. It's not a perfect world. Other thing we have to take in consideration is certain foods require certain kind of lighting to look their best. Yes, you can shoot food with any light available, but to get the results you want, then a certain modifier will work better than others. So you can't take my pure examples that I'm doing as gold. This is a general overview to give you a good look at what light modifiers, or lack of, will do to the food. Let's have a closer look at my setup and we'll start taking some pictures and show some examples. All right, here's our little setup. You can see I've got my camera set right there. It's a Nikon D800 with a Tamron 90mm lens on it. Our subject here is this nice little bowl full of assorted candies, and we put an apple on top because we want healthy eating, not the rotten candy. Or in my case, I want the candy, let's get rid of the apple. But anyways, this is our subject, and I'm using this apple, and it's a fake apple, because it's shiny. So we can look at the highlights on the apple, and you can see how the highlights will change within the photos. Some little dots, and others elongated. So that's what we're going to look at. What I've got over here is an Alien B B800, and it's bare bulb. I got nothing on the front of it. We're going to turn this on, just so you can see that we got power there. And then what we're going to do is, we're going to take a photo. Here's the photo. Now you can see that is a hard light on the subject. Now also during this, I'm going to try and maintain the distance from the light to the subject as best as possible. But sometimes the softboxes and things are deeper, so that will have a minor effect. But that's our first little setup, bare bulb, hard light. Now let's put a silver reflector, 7-inch on the front of this, take a photo and see how that works. Now we've got the 7-inch reflector on. The difference between the bare bulb we just had, the light goes absolutely everywhere within the room. And this is a smaller studio, so I end up getting some fill back in. Now, this is a 7-inch reflector, which is silver. Remember I said about silver being a little more specular, a little harder, and we're now adding a bit of direction to the light. Here's the photo. Here's the two photos between the bare bulb and the silver reflector, side by side. All right, let's move on to another light source. Let's get a little bigger. Let's try a 22-inch beauty dish. Now we've got the 22-inch white beauty dish. If you haven't seen a beauty dish before, there's kind of the look at it there. It has a little center post there, which helps block the light so you don't get that direct. It helps bounce it around a bit. These come in white and silver. I went with white because it's not so specular. I've tried to maintain the same kind of exposure on this. As I say, the distance of the light will change slightly because of the modifier. But this is a setup. Now it's a bit bigger light, and we are fairly close to our subject. So let's have a look at this photo. So you can see there's a big difference between it. Now let me put this one compared to the last one with the silver reflector. Quite a bit of difference between them. Now this is what I call a shower cap, and it goes over top of the beauty dish here, basically like a shower cap, but it is a diffuser to help soften it out. Now the beauty dish, most times I use on models and people. It's not that often do I use it on food, but I have on occasion. Let's take a picture now with the same setup with the diffuser on. Have a look. Now let's have a look at the difference between non-diffused and diffused on the beauty dish. So you can see some differencing happening there. Let's get into the next one. Let's try a strip box this time and see what effect we get versus what we've been getting. Thank God I've got a few light stands and studio lights around so I can kind of preset this up to make my job a little easier in doing this. It's a green studio light versus a black, but it's the same. It's an Alien B800. Now I got a strip box on here, same setup, haven't moved the camera, take a photo, boom. Here's what we get. Now this has a diffuser panel on the front of it, and it is silver lined on the inside, and technically you can take the diffuser off because it's only velcroed on and get a little more specular light if you want. Let's compare this one to the 22-inch beauty dish with the diffuser panel on, and you can see some differencing going on there. All right, let's get this one out of the way. Now let's bring in a softbox, which is a bigger one yet. Now as you can see, we're getting into bigger light sources here. Again, haven't changed my setup here. This is a 39-inch softbox, and I've got it bucked right up tight to the table where I kind of had the other light sources, but the light is further back because the softbox is deeper. So it has changed the lighting a little bit. But again, I'm going to try and maintain the exposure so we can look at the effect of it. Without me babbling more, check out the photo we did with the softbox. All right, now check out the difference between the softbox and the strip box. And check out the highlight on the front of the apple. You can see how that is changing continually through all of this. And that's something that you really want to take note of. Not only just the shadows and the highlights, but we're getting that glow on the side and the shape of the glow also. Okay, let's get bigger. I'm going to get rid of this softbox and bring in a 42-inch Octobox, and we'll see what difference it makes compared to this. Getting bigger all the time. 42-inch Octobox. Not a softbox. Softbox is rectangle. This is an octagon. Pay attention to the highlights because the highlights will start taking on the octagon appearance. Especially if you're shooting glassware or you got anything really shiny, you're going to get the Octobox shape versus a rectangle. You can see when I take the photo, have a look at the highlight on the front of the apple here and see how it changes. Have a look at the photo. You can see totally different. Now let's look at this photo compared to the softbox. There is differences within the highlights and the shadows. There might be only subtle differences, but there's still differences and you need to pay attention to that. But as I say, the big thing with the Octobox, and some people don't like it for food photography because of that shape. I use it a lot. I don't really have a lot of issues with it, but I'm aware of it so I can work it to my advantage and not disadvantage. That is an Octobox. Now we could go even bigger. I've got a Lastolite 6 foot by 7 foot, which is a massive light source. I put 2 studio lights in it, and that is some soft lighting. I'll put a link to it down below where I did a shoot with models and made it a fake window. This is a setup for the fake window, so check it out. It's pretty cool. But there are other types of light modifiers available to us. I can go back, not to the bare bulb, but the 7-inch reflector, and we can modify it. So hang on. These are for the 7-inch reflector. They're made by Paul Buck, the same as the other ones. And these are grids. So you can have a look at that. This is a 10% grid, and there's all different values. I've got 10, 20, 30, and 40 grid. So what it does is it narrows my light beam down and contains it a little better. You can also get grids for your Octobox, softbox, strip box to help control your lighting. I didn't get into all of that because it starts to become really overkill. I just wanted to show you the general light modifier and how it works. You can also use other things. Let me get this for a sec, hang on. And I've shown it in the videos before, and it's simply a diffuser panel. You get those 5-in-1 reflector kits. It normally has this inside, and this is a great way of putting softer light in between. And I can actually put this in front of the softbox, strip box, Octobox, whatever, to soften it down even more. So even that 7-inch reflector, if I move it back a bit from here, it's now a big light source because this is what, 41, 42 inches? It's pretty big. It will create a softer light. So there's other ways other than this can we modify it. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let's put some of these photos. Let's have a look at the Octobox compared to the very first photo. There's some difference. How about between the bare bulb, not the bare bulb, but the 7-inch reflector and the Octobox? There's some big differences here. I'll put some of these pictures up so you can have a look at them so you can see comparison between them. And there is a wide variety between the hard light, the shadowing, and everything else. I will put a link down below to a video I did on using hard light in food photography and how to create it to get that epic look to it. But that gives you a good general overview. Like I say, there's so many variables that could be done with this that can hinder the examples. I tried to keep everything as constant as I possibly could. And I think it came out fairly well and fairly representative to the light modifier. So now if you're just starting out or intermediate, or you're wondering about some other kind of light modifier, hopefully this has given you a bit of information to steer you in the right way. And no, you don't need all this gear when you start out. You start gaining it over time. You don't want to get gas, especially in food photography. No pun intended. Gas meaning gear acquisition syndrome. That means the latest, greatest, you gotta buy it all the time. You don't need to. You can make do with a lot of gear you have, modify it, think about light, learn to see light. That will be the best advice I can give you, is learn to see light and how to manipulate it. And that's what this is all about, manipulating the light. That's it for this one. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit that bell notification so you're aware when I post new videos like this. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. So, until the next time, guys.